This is the weekly update for Mr. Fix's science class for the week of March 25th. All right, so we had a quiz on Monday on magnetic fields chapter 2. So that was taken and scored, and students, if they want to increase their score, they can retake the quiz. We also did an Edpuzzle, Electromagnetic Levitation Quadcopter. So it was obviously a video on levitation of quadcopter, and students answered questions.
How does it work? Well, it's similar to how a magnet falling through a pipe is slowed down.
How it worked, etc. So that was scored as well. Again, each day we do magnetic fields review. So let's take a look at that. All right, so again, the upper left-hand corner of the review is what lesson the question pertains. So we go through these questions the next day after the previous day's lesson as a little mini review. So this week we did it on 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. So there's 3.1, and here's 3.2, etc. All right, exploring energy and force strength was lesson 3.1. So students were given some magnets for warm-up, and they had to see what the effect of moving a magnet gets a stronger force. And so they followed those directions, and they wrote down some of their ideas. We copied down chapter 3 question, why was there so much more potential energy stored in the launcher system on Wednesday than on Tuesday? So they wrote that in page 20 of their notebook. And so let's take a look at that reference notebook here. All right, so there's the chapter 3 question written right there. So we investigated this question, and we looked at claim A, more potential energy can be stored by moving against the magnetic force of a stronger magnet, and claim B was more potential energy can be stored by moving against the magnetic force closer to a magnet. So this is the visual representation of that. And again, we have to look at, when we look at evidence is stronger when the variable being tested is isolated, or when only one variable is changed at a time. I did an example of an experimental design by dropping a rubber ball, but in class I actually used a golf ball. So if you want to know what effect distance has on the energy, potential energy that you put in the system, so you only change one variable at a time. So in this case, it's the height. You drop at various heights. We got to keep everything else the same, such as the surface type of the ball mass, etc. So that's what we got to keep separate. So they had to do the same thing for testing what the effect is on strength of magnets has on the potential energy in a system. So they recorded their information into Amplify, and then they did a little reflection, and then they recorded their thinking of their claims. So they observed that a stronger magnet has greater magnetic force, and also observed that there's a stronger magnetic force closer to the magnet. And so the homework was to think about Tuesday's and Wednesday's launch. Then on Wednesday, we did lesson 3.2, investigating magnetic force strength. Instead of using real magnets, this time they used the sim to see if claim A and claim B is true or supported. So this is little GIFs of the sim and how they can use the force meter to see how strength of force was when you place the force meter near a strong magnet or a weak magnet and closer distance to the magnet. They can see, and also look at the force field lines as well to see if that's an indicator of how strong or force these magnets give off. Then they looked at some evidence cards, and they wrote down and shared a routine that explains how potential energy gets stored in the system. So they did that in class. And then they were given a modeling tool Well, they wrote down key concept number 7 first. Moving a magnet against a stronger magnetic force transfers more energy to the magnetic field. And key concept number 8, magnetic force is stronger closer to a magnet. And then they used a modeling tool to show some of their ideas. And then on Thursday, we did lesson 3.3. And this was all about looking at the evidence cards to finally, talk about and answer the question, why did the spacecraft go so much faster than expected on Wednesday? So they had claim 3A and claim 3B to see if the evidence was supported by that. So they looked at all these evidence cards. These are all the evidence cards that had their own copy, and they had to identify which claims were supported by each evidence cards. And then we used a modeling tool to show Tuesday's launch and Wednesday's launch of the spacecraft with the magnet and the launcher magnet, how they interacted, and etc. So they did that on Thursday, their first draft, and then on Friday, they then were given a self-check revision. So they had to check to see if their paragraph that they wrote had this information in there, including the highlighted vocabulary terms. So this was for their final draft on Friday. So this was a graded assignment. So that was Friday, combination of Thursday-Friday activity. And then on Friday, they also did the magnetic field's critical juncture assessment, where they answered 12 multiple choice questions, 2 written responses to see how their understanding of these key concepts has progressed since the beginning of the unit. So that's what we did this week. Hope you have a good weekend. Bye-bye.